Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Looks like it was another bad day for the Russians in Avdiivka. 810 eliminated personnel, 29 tanks, 18 armored vehicles, and 30 artillery pieces. We'll talk about Avdiivka in a second, but first we have to talk about Western democracy. The question, is Western democracy's resolve for supporting Ukraine currently faltering? And I want to share this quote from John F. Kennedy. The educated citizen knows how much there is to know. He knows that knowledge is power, more so than ever before. He knows that only an educated and informed people will be a free people, that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of all. So let's first talk about Europe, and then we'll talk about the United States. Because in Slovakia, they just elected a new prime minister, Robert Fico, who does not support Ukraine. He has some pretty strong opinions about the war.
No more arms deliveries to Ukraine. Slovakia's new Prime Minister Robert Fico announced the move on Thursday after he was sworn in by President Zuzana Chaputova. Bratislava will also limit, quote, humanitarian and civil aid to its neighbour. This is the left-wing populist's fourth term as premier.
So Slovakia's new prime minister is a left-wing populist who wants to end all military aid to Ukraine and even limit humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Given that Slovakia is a member of the EU and a member of NATO, yes, this guy can do a lot of damage. And this is on top of Viktor Orban, who's already blocking EU aid to Ukraine. Viktor Orban of Hungary has pretty much been cheering the Russians this entire war. So yes, this is bad news and very concerning that two of Ukraine's neighbors are now being openly hostile to Ukraine, not defending a fellow democracy, not defending Ukraine's territorial integrity and their sovereignty, giving validation to Russian fascism and Russia's claims that it's okay to invade their neighbors and steal their territory. I truly wonder what would the people of Hungary and Slovakia say if Russia invaded Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania next. This is very discouraging for European democracy. Let's now talk about the United States, and as much as the Europeans have done as far as financial and humanitarian aid, there's no dispute that in order to hold the Russians back militarily, Ukraine needs military support from the United States. So last November or December, Congress passed an appropriations bill to send a lot of military aid to Ukraine, and you can see how it was dispersed. Almost $6 billion was sent in January of this year, 4.6 sent in February. But there's been a distinct trend down to September and October of diminishing military aid. So the United States Congress needs to pass another bill funding military aid to Ukraine for another year or 2 years or whatever. So this is the story that everyone's talking about. Trump ally, Ukraine skeptic Mike Johnson elected U.S. House Speaker. And your first question might be, who the heck is Mike Johnson? Because that is what everyone in the United States is currently saying. Mike Johnson is a representative from the state of Louisiana, and not many people outside of Louisiana knew who Mike Johnson was even a week ago. He was only elected to Congress in 2017, so he's only been serving in our federal government for 6 years, and he's now second in line to be President of the United States. Mike Johnson is the most powerful man in Congress currently, and Ukraine's fate is currently in his hands. So does he support Ukraine or not? Here's a website, Republicans for Ukraine, currently tracking the votes of all Republicans on votes that matter for Ukraine, and his voting record hasn't been good. very poor. He voted to approve the Lend-Lease Act in April of last year, but every vote since then he has voted against helping Ukraine. Not good. But it's one thing to vote against something you know is already going to pass. If you're the person deciding if there's a vote or not, maybe you'll make a different decision. Mike Johnson doesn't even have to vote for the bill. As the speaker, all he has to do is schedule a vote, and a supermajority of the House will vote for it. So President Biden, who I guarantee did not know who this guy was 2 weeks ago, put out a statement congratulating Mike Johnson, extending the olive branch, willing to meet with him and work with him whenever Mike Johnson wants to. And here's what President Biden has to say. While House Republicans spent the last 22 days determining who would lead their conference, I have worked on those pressing issues, proposing a historic supplemental funding package that advances our bipartisan national security interests in Israel and Ukraine, secures our border, and invests in the American people. These priorities have been endorsed by the leaders in both parties. So currently, the Senate and President Biden are working together on this $106 billion aid package. Something like $60 billion is earmarked for Ukraine, 13 or so is for Israel. There's also some border security and some humanitarian relief for the Palestinians, and maybe even something about Taiwan in there. So it's a team effort here to convince Mike Johnson just to allow a vote. That's all he has to do. And the concern is that they're going to try and split the bill up. There is greater support amongst House Republicans for aid to Israel than there is aid to Ukraine. So Biden and the Senate, they're trying to trick the House Republicans, putting them together. And House Republicans, of course, know what they're doing. Senator J.D. Vance is circulating a memo calling for Israel and Ukraine aid to be split up. But Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is saying, no, we're not going to do that. McConnell supports packaging aid to Ukraine and Israel together. So here's the risk for House Republicans and for Mike Johnson. Do you deny this bill, and because you don't like Ukraine so much, you're going to refuse aid to Israel? And if you don't understand American politics, the most powerful and important lobbying group in Washington, D.C. is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. The reason why the United States supports Israel so strongly is because Israel pays a lot of money to lobby members of Congress. The United States has a very significant Jewish population who have deep ties, family, and security interests in defending and supporting Israel. And this is their lobbying group in Washington, D.C. So AIPAC is heavily involved in every election for both Democrats and Republicans. And what we need, if anyone watching this video knows anyone at AIPAC, we need AIPAC to say they support a combined support supplemental bill. Israel can no longer sit on the fence. I'm just tossing this out there. I'm one person, one voice, but Israel for the last 2 years has been trying to play both sides, both the West and the Russians, trying not to show favoritism, but it's game time. Western democracy is under assault, and if Israel truly is a Western democracy, they need to support Ukraine. Ukraine has not hesitated to support Israel. President Zelensky on October 8th declared his support for Israel, condemning Hamas. And the Russians won't do that. Russia refuses to designate Hamas a terrorist group. Currently, Hamas is holding almost 200 Israeli citizens hostage in the Gaza Strip, brutalizing and torturing these people, threatening them. Hamas has to go. They're not good people. Anybody supporting and defending Hamas, in my opinion, is a bad person. but it's all connected. And for Mike Johnson, I don't know how he did it. He got every Republican in the conference to vote for him. And the speculation is people did this because nobody hates him. Because he's only been in Congress for 6 years, he hasn't had time to make any enemies. So here you'll see Matt Gaetz, he's the guy that removed McCarthy, cheering for Mike Johnson, but I also see establishment House Republicans also supporting the guy. So my theory is that Mike Johnson promised everything to everyone and he can't deliver. So he could potentially be removed next week. Congress has to vote on a budget by November 17th, and if they don't, the US government shuts down. So Mike Johnson might only be Speaker for like a month. We'll see what happens. But here's my hope, and I'm going to give him a fair shot. I'm going to believe that Mike Johnson is going to meet with military leaders, meet with security experts, and hear what they have to say. And he's going to get the truth from them. There's something very important in the United States called the President's Daily Brief, and this is a top secret document and presentation given to the President every single day. So the CIA and Naval Intelligence and all of our intelligence agencies, they will aggregate the most important things happening in the world for, like a 1-hour brief to the President every single day. Every member of Congress does not get this information, and the equivalent in Congress is called the Gang of Eight Intelligence Briefing. So the Gang of Eight, this is the leaders of the House and the Senate, as well as the ranking members of the Senate and House Intelligence Committees. So Mike Johnson, when not voting to support Ukraine, he's not getting these daily intelligence reports. Members of Congress get some, but they're limited. It's on a need-to-know basis for a lot of things. And my hope is that when Mike Johnson, as the new speaker, starts sitting in on all these intelligence briefings with military leaders and intelligence experts, they're going to help him connect the dots. And let me walk you through what's happening here. United States says Iran is actively facilitating attacks on US bases in the Middle East. I can't speak too much on this in detail, but the reports are that 24 American soldiers have been injured in drone and missile attacks on US bases in the last couple days. So let's connect the dots here. Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov visited Iran on Monday. On Monday, the Russians gave the green light to the Iranians to go forward with this plan. On Tuesday, the Iranians gave the green light to their militant groups across the Middle East to attack US military bases however possible, cause as much damage, destruction, and chaos as possible to destabilize the region, threaten Israel, distract Western media from Ukraine. So Mike Johnson is going to start getting these intelligence briefs every single day that US forces and US interests are being threatened in the Middle East by Iran, and Iran's #1 military ally right now is Russia. If you want to weaken Iran, we have to weaken and defeat Russia. The best way to weaken and defeat Russia is to give Ukraine everything they militarily need in order to win this war. This feels like a no-brainer to me, but we live in a democracy full of ignorant people, and they just have to be educated what the real threat and dangers are to all Western democracies if this new military alliance of Iran, Russia, and North Korea is allowed to stand. So I know for a lot of people paying attention to the news, this feels like a high tide moment. But just think how people in Europe felt in October of 1942. When this was the height of Nazi power, they looked invincible, they looked undefeated. And I'm not concerned. I believe in Western democracy, I believe in the democratic process, Is it messy? Yes. Does it take time? Yes, but dictators are really stupid. They make really stupid decisions, especially when they feel like they're invincible, when they feel like they can't be defeated. So I'm not giving up on the process. I'm actually still confident that Mike Johnson, meeting with leaders in the White House and leaders in the Senate, will make the right decision, and that military funding for Ukraine will continue far into the future. I'm still committed that Ukraine is going to win this war, and Russia is going to be defeated. The only question is, how long is it going to take? So let's get to the war zone. Russia decreases ground attacks at Avdiivka, but launches heavy airstrikes. Russia advances near Avdiivka, but suffers significant losses. The battle for a huge slag heap in the town of Avdiivka continues, with Russian forces advancing but unable to hold their positions due to intense Ukrainian artillery fire. So the Russians have convinced them that there's this slag heap, a pile of debris from a coal mine, and they're convinced this is the secret to taking this entire region. They've been tossing everything they've got at this slag heap day after day, and Ukraine eventually was forced to withdraw from this mountain of debris. It's better to look at it on Google satellite images. So here's Avdiivka to the south. This is a giant coal mine, coal factory. And this is a mountain that provided Ukrainian forces with high ground to defend this area. This area around here is where Russia has taken thousands of casualties and lost hundreds of armored vehicles in the last 2 weeks, trying to take this slag heap. And the problem that the Russians have is, even if they get the slag heap, it doesn't really help them take the coal mine. The coal mine is exactly like the Azovstal in Mariupol. The place is a fortified fortress. I don't know how else to describe it, but if Ukrainian defenders are well supplied and dug into this coal factory, how the heck are the Russians ever going to take it? So my thinking is the Russians want to encircle the coal factory to starve out the Ukrainian defenders before they can then encircle Avdiivka, once again to starve out the defenders. Russia's taking horrendous losses. I still think Ukraine can hold everything, but they're trying. They're trying pretty hard. And on top of the slag heap, this is what everyone's been laughing about the last couple days, but Russia planted some flags to make it, look like they conquered this hill. The Russian forces couldn't stay there. It wasn't safe to hold the hill, but they planted a flag, and then Ukraine immediately sent a drone out in order to destroy the flag. So there's no Russian flag currently on top of this slag hill. Neither side controls it, but Russia's convinced that taking this hill is a big deal. More videos online, and this video, wow. I'm going to link this down below, but this might potentially be one of the craziest, very disturbing videos I've ever seen. There's Russian soldiers riding on top of a BMP, trying to assault a Ukrainian position. It's hit with something. It's either runs over a mine or it's hit with an RPG, and it gets messy. It gets really gory. So if you're comfortable with seeing violence, check it out. In fact, I'm going to bookmark this. It's so crazy. Otherwise, you might want to skip it. This video from Dimitri at War Translated is very unique. This is GoPro video from a Russian soldier about to be hit with cluster munitions. And I've never seen a video of this before. So this is pretty incredible. I don't think I can show it, so I'll link it down below. Let me share the first couple seconds with you.
Все чисто справа. Справа чисто. Берем его.
So you can hear the shell. The cluster rounds are about to go off. And this is crazy. I mean, I can't believe that we're getting HD video of Russian troops taking cluster munitions, and this is available on the internet for anyone to see shortly after it happened. So let's check in with Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. Russian Defense Minister orders winter readiness in visit to the front line. And I'll let you be the judge if Sergei Shoigu actually went to the front line. So Russia put out this propaganda video, Shoigu getting on the helicopter. He's definitely talking some serious military strategy while on the helicopter. The helicopter's clearly flying to the front lines. You can't fake this. Shoigu's inside. Shoigu gets off the helicopter, and now he's underground. So is he actually at the front lines? Because there's a lot of things about this video which are questionable and suspicious. And the thing that everyone's commenting on is, why is there camo netting all over the walls of this underground bunker? Camo netting helps you not be spotted by your enemies from a distance or from aerial drones. But what does camo netting on a wall underground do to protect your soldiers? Additionally, there's a red carpet for Shoigu. That's kind of a weird choice for a war zone, but Russians are pretty odd. And for contrast, this is what Zelensky looks like visiting his generals on the front lines. No camo netting on the walls. I mean, are these guys in danger of being spotted? So let's go ahead and listen to a young Russian officer talk about how great the war is going for Russia from this propaganda video. We got an order for the assault team to take the enemy's stronghold. We moved to the stronghold and a battle ensued. The enemy hid in a dugout that was difficult to approach. The battle went on for an hour. The enemy began to fire cluster munitions and mortars at the stronghold. Because of this, we had to hide in the neighboring dugout. During the breaks, lasting 30 seconds to a minute, I was coming out of the dugout to the parapet, shooting from a machine gun to prevent the enemy from counterattacking, roughly speaking, and shelling the dugout where we were hiding. During one of these incursions, I convinced them, the Ukrainians, to surrender. I told them, guys, that's it. You had enough of the fighting. I will give you an officer's word that you will be alive and well. They surrendered after that. Then they came out of the stronghold to the clearing. I have them, with their arms up in the air, and a Ukrainian drone with a grenade was above me. I was pointing to them because they were standing 2 meters away, so I was showing that their guys were standing there. Well, they dropped the grenade right away. It fell in between us. Then they started shelling us with cluster munitions. This is why we dragged the 3 of them back into the stronghold that by then was already ours. We sat there for 2 more hours with them. So according to this Russian officer, he convinced some Ukrainians to surrender in order to save their lives. Ukraine then tried to kill their own soldiers who surrendered, but he saved them again from that evil Ukrainian drone trying to kill their own people. No, I don't think Ukrainians are too keen on surrendering because everyone in Ukraine has seen what Russia does to their prisoners of war. 90% of Ukrainian POWs who have returned have reported being tortured. All of them are starved. All of them are beaten. So yeah, I'm doubting the validity of that Russian officer's story. I want to quick mention a story that's getting a lot of attention online, and Russia test launched an ICBM. Putin oversees test firing of ballistic missiles. This is Russia's road mobile ICBM, and this is normal. The United States does this as well. 4 times a year, every year, the United States test launches ICBMs from Vandenberg in California. I was stationed there in 2016 and 2017. I personally oversaw the test launches of 6 or 7 ICBMs. It's routine, it's normal. What might not be normal is Putin choosing to personally oversee the test firing to make sure it gets more publicity. This is just Russia once again saber-rattling their nuclear arsenal. The United States doesn't test launch ICBMs with real nukes. Russia doesn't do it either, but Russia's saying maybe in the future they'll do a test launch with a real nuclear weapon. It's pretty stupid, but that's Russia. Russia lost another plane. This was a low-cost Russian airline that overran the runway. Russia's been having a lot of problems with spare parts, maintenance, specifically brakes. So yeah, anyone in Russia choosing to get on one of these planes, your days might be limited. Final couple feel-good clips I got for you. The first one is just a little friend of a defender.
А хто це в нас тут заховався? Вставай, вже сонце світить. Що таке? А, потягуся. Ні, все, закривай, да? Ну ладно, спи дальше.
You can tell he's saying, wake me when the war is over. Final clip I have for you are some Ukrainian children who were rescued from the recently deoccupied territories. They were then allowed to go to the Carpathian Mountains, this is western Ukraine, in order to relax, recover, and make new friends and just be kids. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth. Keep defending democracy.